Welcome, everyone. I'm Jennifer Goodman, and I lead the military initiative here at Aramark. I'm joined today by Helen Teague, who is going to share with us about her experience at Aramark. Helen, thanks so much for joining us. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and your connection to the military community.
Hi, Jennifer. Thanks so much for having me today. So I'm Helen Teague. I've been with Aramark for 5 years now. I'm currently a director of strategic solutions for the collegiate hospitality growth team. And I've had the privilege of serving 20 years in the United States Navy. I enlisted at the age of 17, and I worked in logistics and supply chain within the aviation community. Then I was accepted into the Seaman to Admiral commissioning program. And so then I served the remainder of my career as a supply officer, overseeing operations within the different communities such as ships, submarines, aviation. I did a tour at the Naval Academy as the aide for the superintendent, and then finally as the Fleet and Family Service Deputy Director at a Naval Air Base in Maryland.
Gotcha. What an incredible experience, and so much great experience just to bring here to Aramark as well. Tell us what brought you here and what is it that you do for the company?
So that was an interesting story. I actually didn't even know about Aramark, but at my 20-year mark in the Navy, I was ready for something different. And so I decided to pursue a career in the corporate world. And I just happened to stumble upon an Aramark director position for a university in Florida. And so after speaking with the talent and acquisition employee, I realized that based on my military experience, I really needed a position with a greater scope of responsibility. And it just so happened at that exact time in Aramark's healthcare line of business, they were looking for a district manager to oversee 6 hospitals in South Florida. So I accepted that position and I never looked back. And since my time as a district manager, I've been promoted almost every 2 years, moving laterally into positions like Director of Strategic Partnerships in the retention world for 3 different lines of business. And then solely for collegiate hospitality. For those who don't know, that's also known as higher education, but this is our new branding, collegiate hospitality. And now as the Director of Strategic Solutions for collegiate hospitality growth.
That's great. So, you mentioned you kind of stumbled upon Aramark. Tell me, I find sometimes that folks will see names of organizations they don't recognize and they'll continue to move forward. How was that for you? How did you go through and see about them and decide, hey, I'm going to explore this a little bit more?
That's a great question. So I always do my homework. I think people in the military are always prepared. So I saw the position title and I thought, that's interesting. I have a background in, food and hospitality with the Navy, running different operations like that. And so I started reading the job position and I started picking up on different words and quite honestly, Googling those words. Okay, what does that mean? How does that apply to what I know how to do? And then I just Googled Aramark as a company and I started looking at the pages and their mission and their value and what are they trying to accomplish? And is that something that I could fit in with? And as I started reading those things and kind of just doing a little bit of homework, I thought, this might be something I'm interested in. I just said, okay, this sounds like it fits. I think I can bring some value. Let's check it out. And what I love about Aramark is every employee that I've run into is super helpful and kind. And the conversation I had with the talent and acquisition person was just really, that really shared a lot to me about the culture of the company and how they treat their people and just how they talk to each other. And so from that point on, I thought, okay, Aramark, I'm going to start looking for other positions. Maybe there's something else that works.
Yeah. So thank you for laying that out and some of the research that you did. When it came to describing your experience to that recruiter that was so helpful, to the hiring manager, how much did that research help you do a little bit of translation from your experience in the military, which is a little bit different, but very relatable to what we do here at Aramark?
That is such a great question. So I would say that is the hardest part about transitioning. It really does take time. What I would say is really understand who you are, what drives you, what you specifically brought to the team each and every day. because so many times veterans discount their skill sets and abilities because it's just what you do on a day-to-day basis. And so these duties that you've done seem very commonplace to you, but they're very valuable to employers. So what you need to do is take some time to literally just write down the things that you used to do on a day-to-day basis. And then take those words and start looking through example positions. It doesn't matter what industry, just any position that you may think has some correlation. But I think for me, it was very helpful to find a mentor. I sought out a mentor or a veteran in the industry that I was looking for. And I just asked them, I said, look, can you help me translate these skills and position titles into the vernacular that they use? And that opened my eyes to so many different words and position titles. I didn't know that my position title is considered a director or a vice president or whatever it is. And so that was very helpful for me. And just, I think, understanding what you bring to the table and then correlating that to just reading the different job descriptions and what they're looking for. And then you can start piecing together your story. That was huge for me. And I think once I figured that out, the sky was the limit. I felt like so many doors open to me because I wasn't pigeonholing myself, and I found areas and industries that I probably wouldn't have even looked at, but know that they need my skill sets.
Yeah, absolutely. So that leveraging networks, I love the use of the job descriptions that you mentioned that you did, and really just writing down all of these skills and the things that you did day to day. And it sounds like those are tools that could not only be beneficial to those who are transitioning, that are already out of service, but even to our military spouses as well.
Yeah. And if I may add, Jennifer, I forgot to say, please don't limit yourself to a company that aligns with what you did in the service. I'll share a quick example. I was at a veteran career fair. So I was obviously seeking to find companies in the background that I was doing, supply chain, et cetera. But a recruiter from a table opposite where I was trying to apply from was in the healthcare industry and said, hey, I think you would be a great fit. You should apply for this. And I was thinking, but I don't have any background in healthcare. I don't have a degree in healthcare. And that was not the case at all. In fact, you don't need a background in that particular industry. So my recommendation is don't discount job positions because you're unfamiliar with the specifics of the industry. There's so much more out there for you. You just need to know how to navigate it.
That's a great suggestion. Another thing that you mentioned is that you've been able to progress with us as an organization. So I'd love to hear about what Aramark has done to help you grow professionally and within your career.
What I love about Aramark is that there are so many different avenues to advance to develop your skill sets. So with the military, advancement is always vertical, but with Aramark, you have opportunities in many different lines of business, various positions across the enterprise. And so this has allowed me to learn different aspects of each different line of business. I can gain new skill sets. My toolbox, so to speak, is getting fuller with different avenues and different things that I've been doing, learning opportunities. But most importantly, what I like about Aramark is that there are so many opportunities to make connections and be parts of a diverse team in so many different fields and segments. I mean, just a small example, even being a part of an ERG opens you up to the different positions that people have within the organization. And if something they do sounds interesting or intriguing to you, you can ask them, and people are always willing to share what they do and what they've done. And so there are so many opportunities. And I would encourage you to know that growth is not always vertical, but growth can also be horizontal.
Absolutely. That's a great call out. And it sounds like that networking has been important, not only in that phase of seeking employment, but also just continuing to grow on and progress as a professional. So just not that period of job seeking and transition, but even all along the way, networking and meeting others.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it's been wonderful learning about your career path here at Aramark. To wrap up our time today, I'd love to leave our audience with any additional advice that you have for the military community, and for folks that are looking for that next career or maybe just be looking for that opportunity to grow professionally.
Sure. I think something that's near and dear to my heart is just don't be afraid to talk about your successes. In the military, we're taught to be humble. We work as a team. No one brags about themselves. You just do what needs to be done for the good of the team and the mission. And so when you are transitioning to the civilian job market, you're going to be speaking to a variety of people who more than likely will not have any experience with the military environment. They don't know what your job entailed. They don't know the skill sets that were required for that position. And so I highly encourage you to openly share what you've done, what you've accomplished, and how you impacted the mission. You must learn to sell yourself. And I know that sounds really hard, and it's very hard for military people to do that, but no one else is going to do that for you. This was a huge change for me, and it was something that took a lot of time to understand and to grasp. And please know that you are not being arrogant. You are not bragging. You're telling your story so that those that you're making contact with know who you are, the value that you bring to the table, and the successes that you've brought to your organization.
That's wonderful. Helen, thank you for sharing with us your experience and your insights. And we thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you so much.